Brew Strong is brought to you by Blickman Engineering, home of the top-tier brewing stand. Visit them online at blickmanengineering.com.
Brewers, it's time for the beer radio you've been looking for. This is the show that dispels myths, tackles the toughest topics, and makes no apologies for geeking out on beer. Hosted by two guys that drink before they think, Jamil and John Palmer. This is Brew Strong.
Hey, howdy, hey, my brewing brothers and sisters.
Greetings.
Yes. I get the air conditioner working again, or turned on. Let's put it that way.
It's hot again in California.
I was dying. I was all falling asleep. Evil 3 didn't
oh yeah, that
help that either.
Not exactly a wake up.
Right.
Yeah.
Not nearly.
You brewing any coffee beers out there at Heretic?
Actually, we have. We do one called Alternating Current, which was like a 15+% beer with coffee and bourbon barrel aged. And so the coffee gives you the high, the alcohol gives you the low. That's what we call Alternating Current.
That's a good name,
yeah. Yes, indeed. And now we are going to be serving cold coffee on nitro.
Oh, nice. Yes. So that's really tasty, too.
We've got a guy called First Crack Coffee. He's in Vacaville. He's right next to us. And he single sources the beans, like per farm out of all these coffee growing regions of the world. And then he roasts them himself to, these specific standards. And he's just a master at it. Turns out spectacular. I've been drinking a lot more coffee since meeting this guy. And so that's the coffee that we're going to be serving here pretty soon.
That sounds good. Sounds good.
Yeah, I'm excited about it. I've been redoing taps. We're actually going to be able to do wine service, too.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
So there's a local winery that we've worked with that's giving us grapes for beers and things like that. And so we're going to start serving some of their wine.
Are you going to do any distilling of it? Make some brandies?
Our distilling license doesn't allow me to get alcohol from others and distill it.
Ah. Okay.
So the interesting thing is a lot of the distilleries out there, they don't actually ferment anything. They just buy totes of alcohol from like some fuel plant in the Midwest and then process it, and that's what they do. And I think the best stuff is stuff that you determine and ferment. You make the mash and do all this stuff. And so I don't mind that our license doesn't allow us to get alcohol for somebody else. I'd rather make it all ourselves anyways. And so we could get grapes from them and then ferment the grapes and then distill that as brandy. Okay, we just can't let them ferment it.
Mm-hmm. There's a bunch of well, I shouldn't say a bunch. There's a trend in grape ales, like Italian grape ales and other wine regions where making a half must, half mash kind of wort, and fermenting that. And I've had some really nice ones from South America. That'd be something that you could do.
We've already been doing that for several years. Beer called Blood of Jupiter.
Oh, okay.
It's made with Sangiovese grapes, and Sangiovese translates to Jupiter's blood. Mm-hmm. And so we've been doing Blood of Jupiter for the last 4+ years. And we do this with Green Valley Cellars, which is they're a winery in our valley, which is called Green Valley. And they actually grow the grapes there. Like the only ones around that are like growing their grapes there. And So we've been using grapes from them. This last year, they gave us like a literal ton of grapes, or a couple of tons of grapes to make the beer. So really cool people. I love them. They're just awesome. Well, you know who else is awesome?
Our good friend John Blickman?
No, but let's talk about him anyways. No. No, he is awesome. He is just a sweetheart of a guy, and a really, a brilliant engineer. And I'm, one of the things I love about doing these shows is that I've met so many great people and made so many good friends. I mean, it's really the value I get out of this is...
Yeah, I agree.
Right, because we don't make any money at it, but we do get to meet some awesome people. Actually, I'm getting on a plane end of the month, heading out to Netherlands and Sweden and England, and one listener, he was like, "Yeah, I'm a pilot, and I fly, Netherlands to Sweden." I'm like, "Well, I'm going Netherlands to Sweden." He's like, "Well, I'll pick the flight you're on. I'll request that one." So sure enough, he's gonna be flying me Netherlands to Sweden.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Or Netherlands to Sweden, or yeah, I think so. Yeah, Netherlands to Sweden. So we're gonna meet up for a couple of beers beforehand. Yeah, he's gotta get liquored up before he flies that plane.
Right.
But no, I thought that's really cool. I mean, it's somebody I wouldn't have met or known until, if it wasn't for doing these shows. So I really do find that that's the greatest value. And, somebody like John Blickman, when you talk about great value, sometimes the equipment that he makes is not the cheapest. It's not that expensive either when you look at the value of what you're getting. The engineering that's gone into it, the quality of the production, the quality of the equipment, how it affects your brew day. I think that you kind of get what you pay for in a lot of this stuff. You can buy some cheap stuff from China, or you can get good stuff that's going to make your brew day even better. So check them out, BlickmanEngineering.com. Lots of great stuff there. If you're going to the conference in Portland, you want to get out there and stop by the Blickman Engineering booth. You'll get to meet John Blickman and a lot of his other really brilliant people. He brings out engineers and stuff, and they're the nicest people, and we'll talk to you all day about your needs and how you brew and how the equipment that they sell will or won't do what you want to do with your brew day. They'll be honest with you. They're not there to sell you snake oil. They're there to make happy brewers. So check them out. BlickmanEngineering.com. You can also send an email directly to John Blickman by sending an email to feedback at BlickmanEngineering.com. And he will get that. Tell him thank you for sponsoring the shows for all these years. All right. Today, we were going to talk about, it's real interesting. I've, the concept of body keeps coming up. In related stuff, head and body. I think people are looking now for beers that go more on the extreme. So they're looking for drier beers, lighter beers, and they're looking for heavier beers. More thicker beers, richer beers. They don't want anything in between anymore, it seems. The modern drinker's looking for those extremes. So it's kind of interesting to kind of delve into that topic of body. So what we've done is gather together some of your questions. If you have questions for the show or show topic ideas, you send them in to Brew Strong at thebrewingnetwork.com. And we will get to all those eventually. But the topic of body has come up a number of times, so I thought that was a good topic for us. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
We got someone actually calling right now.
Oh,
it's got a question for you guys.
Is it John Blickman?
It is. It's not John Blickman.
Why the hell?
His name is Mark. I'm going to put him on right now.
All right. Hey, Mark.
Hello, this is John Blickman. No, this is actually Mark. I'm calling from Wisconsin. I have a question about priming and finishing a beer. So we just brewed a double IPA, a 5-gallon batch. We ended up with about 5.5 gallons total. Just bottled, not this Sunday, but the last Sunday before it. And we primed with 4 ounces of dextrose, corn sugar. And the beer was 1082 starting gravity, finished at 1014. So it's a big beer. I'm worried. I just tasted it the other day. Got no carbonation out of it. I'm worried a few things. I didn't prime it enough. Shooting for somewhere between 2.2 and 2.5 volumes of CO2. I'm also worried. It was my first all-grain batch. It's crystal clear coming out of the carboy. I mean, I couldn't see any yeast. After a week, I can't see any yeast really on the bottom of the bottle. I'm worried maybe we didn't add yeast to the bottles, or what do you think I did wrong? But I haven't noticed any carbonation after a week.
So, how long did the beer sit before you added the priming sugar and bottled?
Maybe 3 weeks. We did 2 weeks of primary, maybe 10 days of primary, and just like 4 days of secondary. As you say, you don't really need second fermentation. We just did it to get it off the hops, so we get grassy flavors. Good dry hop, 4 ounces Simcoe, so I didn't want that nasty vegetable flavor.
So, yeah, don't crash. There is yeast in the beer. That's got to be, even though it looks real clear. What yeast did you use? Cal Ale?
Saf Ale.
05?
Two packs of 05.
All right, so there's yeast in the beer. How warm have you been storing the bottles?
70, but maybe going down to 68.
Yeah.
Like very,
okay.
I mean, we're in Wisconsin, so it gets cold at night.
Right. I would just keep it warm for another week and see what happens. I gotta imagine it's getting there.
Yeah. You could even try warming them up a bit more too. 80 degrees, 85 degrees. If you got a room that you could get that warm.
Yeah, maybe take a 6-pack or a few bottles and hold them at around 85, and see if that does anything to those.
Yeah.
And I think the rest will they will get there over time. I mean, the only other possibility is you didn't mix the corn sugar in well enough. And you're going to have some bottles that are exploding and some that will be flat.
Okay. So we boiled it in a small solution. So we made like a simple sugar, pretty much, simple syrup.
Right. And then you put it in the bottling bucket and then racked it. And you racked it in.
Bucket. Yes, and we used the bottling bucket to bottle.
Yeah, I mean, I bet you
it should be fine.
It just hasn't, there's not that much yeast in there. The yeast wasn't that healthy after dealing with the high gravity fermentation, the high alcohol. There's still live yeast in there. It's just going to take time. You probably would have been better off on that high gravity beer to dose it with a little bit of extra yeast, healthy yeast, and that would have made it carbonate sooner.
So would I do that at bottle when I rack into the bottling bucket? Where would I add the yeast if I'm going to be adding yeast to my bottle?
Yeah, you do it right in the bottling bucket. Get it mixed in well with the sugar and everything. And then you just get a little bit of yeast into each bottle that way.
Would you say like half a little dry yeast pack or a whole pack?
Half would be more than enough.
Yeah, half would be good.
Okay.
Yep.
Great. Well, thank you, gentlemen.
I wouldn't give up on this beer, Mark. I'd hold on and see. I would guess. I mean, it might take a month.
Okay.
But it should carbonate up.
Wonderful. It tastes delicious, but there's no CO2. Wonderful. Thank you, gentlemen. I really appreciate it.
You bet. Have a good day. Thanks for calling in.
All right. You too. Bye-bye.
All right. Look at that. See? Proof that
people listen to the show.
That my brother-in-law, Mark, listens to the show because I told him to and called in. No. Proof that the people who work the equipment here aren't incapable of taking a call. Huh?
Right.
I think this is the first time we've actually...
the equipment's fault.
Well trained.
We've actually been able to get somebody on the air, regardless of all the people that have called in.
We just needed Scott. That was the key the whole time.
Yes. Well, I'm sure that's the key in a lot of cases. Like getting the first show on the air. That required Scott, too.
That required Scott.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Scott, for saving our bacon. Speaking of bacon, let's take a short break, and when we come back, we will have more of your questions right after this.
The 21st Amendment.
Watch out!
Do you like beer? They make beer.
Watch out!
Do you like friends and fun? They make friends and fun.
Watch out!
Do you still like to have a good time? The 21st Amendment.
Watch out!
The 21st Amendment in San Francisco, located at 563 2nd Street, 2 blocks from the building where baseball is seen and played. Try their beers in the pub or try them in the can, featuring
Monk's Blood.
Made with real monk.
Watch out!
So why not have the best time of your life? Go to the 21A and Sean O'Sullivan will personally greet you with a can of
Monk's Blood. The 21st Amendment.
Watch out!
This advertisement is not in any way affiliated nor associated with the 21st Amendment Bar and Pub, nor its subsidiaries or affiliates. This telecast is not copywritten by the 21st Amendment for the private use of the Brewing Network. Any use of this telecast without Jamil Zainashev's consent is prohibited. Suck it, JP.
Since the first time the Brewing Network microphones turned on, More Beer was behind it. More Beer sponsors the programming on the BN because, like you, they love brewing. And like the Brewing Network, they love sharing their knowledge. Morebeer.com isn't just a website to place your next equipment or ingredient order. Morebeer.com also gives you access to free beer information that will make you a better brewer. Go to morebeer.com and click into the Learning Center. You'll find podcasts, technical facts, video tutorials, and more, including access to The Buzz, More Beer's social network of more than 5,000 members. And some of them might even be crazier about beer than you are. Get over to morebeer.com today and take advantage of The Buzz, the forum, the Learning Center, and make sure you're signed up to receive the newest More Beer catalog. More Beer, bringing you absolutely everything for beer making.
Hey guys, what'll it be?
I'm not sure. What do you recommend?
A lot of people seem to like the Hefeweizen.
Is that a German Hefeweizen or more of an American-style wheat beer?
I'm not sure, but I can give you a taste.
Okay, great.
The Cicerone Certification Program certifies and educates beer professionals in order to elevate the beer experience for consumers. Unfortunately, not every bar is staffed with certified beer servers who can guide their customers through a beer list.
Here you go, guys. Let me know what you think of the Hefeweizen.
Oh, yeah. That's definitely more of an American meat. But I can hardly tell because this beer just smells like sour butter. I wonder how long it's been since they cleaned the draft line.
Yeah, and look at the bubbles on the side of the glass. It's filthy.
Somebody should tell these guys about the Cicerone program.
For sure. How about we head somewhere else for another beer?
Your server should give beer the same respect you do. Request quality. The Cicerone Certification Program offers 4 levels of beer certification, in-person classes, and course books for beer professionals. Check them out at cicerone.org. The Cicerone Certification Program. We know beer.
Since 1979, Williams Brewing has offered the finest equipment and freshest ingredients and the best customer service in the business. Check out their brand new patent-pending Mash and Boil 110-volt electric mashing and boiling unit. This compact all-stainless unit lets you mash, sparge, and boil just about anywhere that has a 110-volt plug. Double-wall construction adds to efficiency and safety, and a precise thermostat keeps temperatures where you want them. Unlike insulated buckets and converted coolers, multiple temperature rest mashing is easy to do, all for under $300. They also feature the Mark II work pump, a magnetic drive high-temperature pump that does the work of pumps that cost twice as much, as well as exclusive Brewer's Edge regulators and quality Keg King kegs and disconnects. Check them out today at williamsbrewing.com to brews their vast selection.
Do you know the 3 most important rules in brewing? Sanitation, sanitation, and sanitation. And no one does it better than 5-Star Chemicals. 5-Star knows sanitation. You can only sanitize clean equipment. And 5-Star knows how to clean, too. For craft brewers and home brewers, 5-Star has what you need to keep your fermenters, serving tanks, kegs, and draft lines sparkling and free of any beer-spoiling bacteria. PBW, caustic, acid cleaners, Star Sand, SaniClean, lubricants and defoamers, pH stabilizers, and more. 5-Star Chemicals has cleaning supplies, safety supplies, heat exchangers, pumps, hoses, and valves. And 5-Star is proud to offer eco-friendly products that exceed customer expectations. If you have a cleaning problem, you need the 5-Star solution. Visit 5starchemicals.com or call 800-782-7019. 800-782-7019 and get the 5-Star treatment today.
Back to the beer guys that make other beer guys look like wine guys. Brew Strong.
All right, we're back. We are talking about body-related things today. Although we got a call about carbonating beer, which worked out fine. I wasn't about to hang up on him, since he was like the only caller that made it through in the last 5 years.
Yeah.
5 years. I was like, all right, I'm going with this one.
That was my first call.
And it worked.
Yeah, I was surprised.
All right. Questions.
All right. John and Jamil, I keep reading on the internet about mashing at a higher temperature to give more residual sweetness. Now, my knowledge of brewing science is by no means exhaustive or even comprehensive, so I might be getting something wrong, but this mantra seems to be erroneous. My understanding is that mashing at a high temperature will result in a wort with a higher proportion of longer chain sugars, trisaccharides, and longer maltotriose and dextrins. So if we assume that maltotriose is partly fermentable, depending on the yeast strain used, and that dextrins are unfermentable, then I can see the wort with more long-chain sugars will result in a beer with a higher final gravity and probably have more body. However, I don't see how this equates to more sweetness, as in general, the longer a sugar chain is, the less sweet it tastes. In fact, dextrins are barely considered sweet at all. Wouldn't the only way to truly make a beer sweeter be to add simple sugars after the yeast had been filtered out so that it wouldn't be fermented? Although I can't imagine why you would want to do so. Are people confusing body with sweetness, or am I the one that is confused?
Well, he's not confused per se, but higher gravity mashes do yield a more residual sugar that does have perceptible sweetness.
Yeah, although I would agree with them, just because something has a higher finishing gravity does not mean it is sweeter. Right. Sweetness is, a perception of, the sugars and all that, and could be affected by alcohols, could be affected by a lot of different things. I think, he's totally right. All you're doing is producing longer chain dextrins. So all these sugars are essentially, the shorter the sugar is, the sweeter it is. The simpler the sugar, the sweeter it is. The more complex, the less sweet it is. We made a beer where we added a pound of lactose per gallon of beer. And it's just barely sweet. I mean, it's one of those things. If you take maltodextrin powder that's available, you can buy it at your homebrew shop. Mm-hmm. Take a spoonful, put it in your mouth. It's not sweet. These dextrins are not sweet. They can add to a fullness, maybe to body. But, this is one of my passionate points is people confuse malty with sweet, and people confuse these higher mash temperatures with sweetness. I mean, that's like an old thing that was internet stuff.
Yeah,
I've had beers where same recipe, different mash temperature, finished, higher gravity and tasted drier, less sweet. Lower, finishing gravity, tasted sweeter. Because again, it's a combination of things. It's the alcohols, it's the residual sugars. Generally, there's very little residual sugar in a beer that tastes sweet. They've pretty much been all fermented out. All the glucose, fructose, maltose. There's usually some residual maltose, and then these really long chain sugars. And it's that residual maltose that you're tasting as sweet. If you can make your beer attenuate well by proper fermentation, enough yeast and nutrients and all that, the maltose will all get taken up. The beer will taste drier. Though it may finish at a higher gravity because of these longer chain dextrins that the yeast you're using is not able to consume.
Yeah. That brings me to another aspect that really good points. In the whole NEPA, New England IPA discussions, people were trying to mash at higher temperatures, use lower attenuating yeast to get some residual sweetness.
Right.
And I think that really is misguided. And I think there really is no need for a higher mash temp to create a high residual sweetness wort. As you say, the sweetness comes from many different factors coming together. Mm-hmm. It's the bitterness balance, the amount of bittering you do.
I'd say by reducing the amount of bittering, that affects New England IPA more than anything.
Right. And so trying to mash higher to get a sweeter wort it really is counterproductive because, as you say, what you want in drinkability is a beer that finishes well, and 90% of the time that is a beer that is very fermentable with not a lot of dextrins left over. And so the perception of sweetness, I think, is going to be more affected by residual body, water treatment, bitterness ratio, and so on, that balance.
Well, and you mentioned the high gravity brewing. The alcohols that are produced can come across as sweet. They can come across as bitter. They can come across, there's so many alcohols, and how those are produced and what are produced will affect, your overall perception of sweetness or dryness or whatever in a beer.
Yeah, well, look at your Evil 3. I mean, there's a highly fermentable wort, but a high percentage of alcohol, extremely drinkable, extremely well balanced. In terms of, lots of bitterness, but that alcohol sweetness balances the beer out and has great drinkability. So that's, again, that points that same thing where even though you haven't done a high gravity mash to cause residual sugars to, balance all these IBUs, the alcohol is providing the sweetness instead.
Right. Good question. Interesting question. When you have interesting questions, a lot of times you can turn to your local homebrew shop, which, if your local homebrew shop is Great Fermentations out in Indiana, you're lucky. Well, and even if it isn't your local that you drive to, they are on the web. it's Blickman's local shop, but they have the largest catalog of Blickman products on the web, and their staff is some of the best trained in the use of those products. So, I mean, Blickman comes in himself. When they got questions, they get them answered, and they can tell you all about how to use them. And top that off with top-notch customer service. These folks are great. They even ship most items same day. Check them out, greatfermentations.com. You can even like them on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. It is Great GR8 Fermentation, GR8 Fermentation on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Like them today, greatfermentations.com. All right, next question there, pornographic Stevan.
Right, this one is in reference to, I think, on a previous show, a guy that wrote in about the end of the keg being thinner and lighter.
Mm-hmm.
Someone's responding and said he's had this happen, and he thinks he knows what's going on. He says if he's using a chest freezer as his kegerator, there are cold spots where the cooling coils are inside the walls. If the keg is touching these spots, they can freeze the water inside the beer. And when the beer is low in the keg and the ice melts, it dilutes the beer, therefore having a thinner body. He's keeping the temp inside at 35 Fahrenheit, which is fine, but since it's a freezer, the coils get much colder than that to cool the volume of the entire freezer down.
Yeah, I'm not sure I believe that. Because, all right, let's say the ice is frozen in the beer, which is possible, but, it has to get quite cold. When the ice freezes, the beer you're taking off is very thick and higher alcohol and more intensely flavored because the ice is just, bound up water. So is what he's saying that it's freezing when the keg's full and you're enjoying it and it's frozen then, and then later on the ice is melted and that's why it's thinner?
Yeah.
I mean, well, if it froze early, why isn't it freezing later?
I don't know. Maybe you moved
it to the center?
keg. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't. It doesn't do the Occam's razor test here for me. I think a lot of times it's because there's contamination, and the beers, you've got Brett or whatever consuming the long chain dextrins. And, it's thinning out the beer. And I think, a lot of times we don't notice because we're bleeding off beer, and so it never becomes over gassy. Because generally, when you set a keg in a cooler and you let it sit for a while, if the beer's clean, what happens is all the really fine particulates drop out. And then, head retention improves and just, the beer improves overall. I don't know. What do you think, John?
I agree with what you're saying. I'm more inclined to think that it's due to low-level contamination and further attenuation causing that lightness of body rather than icing because... Yeah, and if you're holding the keg at 35, I mean it's going to be hard for a local spot to ice up in that volume. I mean, the whole thing would really have to get below 30
right.
to start icing.
28. I mean, anything with your average strength beer. 5-6%, it's good down to 29, 28 degrees before it freezes, or less than
something like that.
Yeah. Which I could imagine a cooling coil in the wall. I don't think the guy's crazy. I'm not convinced that's the actual answer.
Mm-hmm.
You set it up against the cooling coil. It's probably getting down to 0, something like that. Or even,
it sounds like it. He said he's had this happen.
Yeah. So again, I don't think he's crazy. I think I don't think that's the answer to this question, though.
I mean, maybe it's one cause of
right.
a couple.
But I mean, it would have to freeze initially when the keg's full.
Yeah.
When it's less likely to freeze, and then thaw later when you've consumed most of it, and it's more likely to freeze.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I just don't.
I mean, temperature
don't
alone will it won't be all homogeneous inside the keg. If there's a cold spot, won't it kind of separate like a little bit? It doesn't necessarily have to freeze completely.
I mean,
do you think it'll?
It certainly can. One of the great things about temperature, you can set up. There can be zoning of different temperatures, and what happens is the liquids will almost kind of isolate themselves from each other based on temperature. The density of the liquid changes, and they will set up layers that way.
Yeah. This actually happened the other day to me. So I was So I was working at. It was nothing. I was at McKellar, and this guy came up and he's like, "Hey, do you like IPAs?" I'm like, "Sure, I'll pretty much drink whatever beer." He said he'd be right back. He went to his hotel down the street from McKellar Bar. Came back.
Invited you back to his hotel. Came back with a tube of lube and an invitation.
Came back with 2 tall cans of Treetop IPA or something like that. He took them out of his backpack, and I noticed they're frozen. They were frozen.
Juice,
They were frozen solid entirely. Apparently, his hotel fridge is really
actually
cold.
Works compared to anybody else's.
Yeah, exactly. So
the ones that
act as heaters solid, most of the time. I left it out. I just left them out. I was like, oh well, that sucks. So I opened them up, left them out, just let them defrost, and the body was ultra thin, and had no taste to it, pretty much. So maybe this goes to like what actually happens to a beer when it gets frozen and then
you will. So a couple things happen. Freezing it and defrosting it doesn't do anything to the alcohols, really. I don't think it can set a permanent haze. That's generally the thing that is like, you don't want to have that happen. But
as far as body, though, I mean. You're talking about long chains. Does it do anything to those?
No.
Well.
Yeah. I just don't think that's the case.
Yeah, it's you get the water freezing out, forming crystals. You get concentration of the beer as it melts. Then you could get some stratification where the water now would float on top of the denser beer. But you're not going to pull that. I mean, and
it's in ice form when that happens. And I guess if it all right. So let's say that happens, where ice forms, it floats to the top of the beer, right?
Yeah.
Even with alcohol in there, it's still going to be lighter. So the ice would float to the top, and let's say then it melts. If you're in a keg, it's drawing off the bottom. So your stratification would be water on top and richer beer on the bottom.
Wouldn't that kind of make sense when you get to the bottom of the keg? You're getting mostly water near the end of the keg.
Could, if that stratification stays.
Right. It would have to stay the entire time. Okay. All right. I could see something
some
like
merit
that possibly happening.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That would explain how. Yeah, I'd be curious with the guy who originally reported this issue. Yeah,
we need more info.
And I could see, freezing a can, not disturbing it. The ice on top slowly thawing and, under just the right conditions, leaving more water on top. And then if you carefully decanted it, that could be thinner. Mm-hmm. That would explain your can experience.
Yeah, I just opened it up and let it just defrost.
Right. Huh. Okay. All right.
And maybe could it be perceived body too? Like, what does it like? I mean, I opened it up, so carbonation. I mean, probably for like a number of hours.
Yeah, perceived perceived body with a lack of carbonation, that could make a difference as well. All right. Okay. Yeah,
sounds like something for Mythbusters. Walk it across the street over there and have them try it out.
Right. Mm-hmm. I would think so. I guess there's a possibility of that. I'm not gonna say no. I'm gonna say needs further research.
Plausible.
Yeah.
NFR needs further research. All right. Let's take a short break. When we come back, I'll be researching another beer, and we'll have more of your questions right after this.
Hey, my brewing brothers and sisters. This is Jamel Zanisha, and I want to tell you about Heretic Evil Twin. You might be familiar with my homebrew recipe, which uses massive late hopping to create a balance between the malty sweet and the hoppy bitter, along with an outrageous malt and hop character. I wanted a beer with the same bold hop and malt character, so we played around with the homebrew recipe until we were able to make a great commercial version too. We've created a beer rich in malt character, full of caramel, toast, biscuit, and an ever so subtle roast note. On top of that, we piled in an insane amount of Citra and Columbus hops at the end of the boil, as well as in dry hopping. This damn-the-cost approach to hopping gives Heretic's Evil Twin a great blast of citrus and tropical fruit that can't be matched by any other hop. The result is a bold, malty, hoppy, but easy-drinking beer. This is our top seller, our flagship beer, and I couldn't be prouder of it. Cheers.
To find Heretic beers near you, click on Find Some at hereticbrewing.com. Ken Grossman of Sierra Nevada Brewing Company says making great beer is hard. Making the same great beer every day is harder. Brewers Publications announces its latest release for breweries of any type and size. Quality Management, an essential guide for brewers by Mary Pelletieri. Proper quality management for small, regional, and national breweries is critical. Whether you are an established business or brand new, learn the best ways to create and manage a quality system in your brewery. This book will guide you in developing a comprehensive program that will grow with your brewery, help ensure quality processes in the brewery, and continue providing great beer for your fans. Quality management for breweries is critical for continued success. This guidebook teaches you to integrate quality management in every level of the operation. It will guide you in developing a comprehensive program to ensure quality processes in your brewery. Quality Management, an essential guide for brewers, now available from Brewers Publications. Learn more at brewerspublications.com. If you work in retail sales, the restaurant industry, or are a new craft beer enthusiast, or you know someone who is, you have got to check out Beer 101. Beer 101 is an online course created for anyone wanting a quick introduction to the vast world of craft beer. Beer 101 covers the history of beer, brewing ingredients and processes, vital stats like ABV, SRM, IBU, and gravity, styles, tasting, glassware, and pairing beer with food. The Beer 101 course is offered by the Brewers Association at craftbeer.com. Also home to the truly awesome Beer Style Finder, a visual guide to every beer style. Quickly play with color, bitterness, and alcohol content to interactively explore the entire world of beer styles with a gorgeously designed interface to your favorite beverage. The new Beer 101 course and new Beer Style Finder are only available at craftbeer.com. Craftbeer.com, celebrating the best of American beer. Grog tags aren't just for labeling your home brews to hand out to your friends. They're the perfect way to round out your personal brewing marketing. Bringing your latest beer to a funeral? Craft a metal sign to go with it. Heading out to little Liam's bar mitzvah? Grog Tag custom bottle caps are awesome. Couldn't get out of jury duty this year? Grog Tag the hell out of the deliberation room with reusable labels. Grog Tag has an awesome array of products just waiting to be customized by you. Metal signs, coasters, tasting mats, bottle caps, tap handles. It's all there waiting for your designs at Grog Tag. Liven up your next party with the widest selection of custom products ever offered by a sponsor of the Brewing Network. Grog Tag. At least your beer will look good.
Back to the two guys that know how to turn beer into beer. This is Brew Strong.
Well, you know who also knows how to brew strong is our good friends at White Labs. And they're bringing it strong with the Vault. I don't know if you've heard about the Vault, but they take like 20 new strains that you've never heard of before that, secret, super secret Mighty Mouse type strains that they've carefully collected across the world from cool breweries that shall remain nameless. And then they make them available for you. Through this Vault program. So you go to whitelabs.com/thevault, and they've got these strains there, and they keep adding new strains, as they get opportunity to. And when you place a pre-order for it, and when it reaches 150 pre-orders, they go ahead and ship it directly to your door. And you get to work with a yeast that you normally wouldn't get a chance to do. And the really cool thing is, yeast makes like 95% of the flavor of beer. You're going to get a chance to make a beer that you couldn't make otherwise. And that's all thanks to the White Labs Vault program. So check it out. They've got all sorts of stuff. If you're a commercial brewer, you can get them to grow one of these up for a liter and a half order. Check it out at whitelabs.com/thevault today. All right. What's our next question, Pornographic Steven?
Hey, guys. I'm currently using a cooler mash tun. I consistently start my mash at the right temperature. However, over the course of an hour, the mash temperature drops roughly 10 Fahrenheit. Until I upgrade to a Kegel mash tun that I can keep heated, is this going to affect my conversion too much? I'm not too worried about losing body as I typically brew lighter ales.
Well, I would say a few things here. One is a 10-degree drop. Either he's not insulating the top, or he's measuring like near the side or something. I mean, 10 seems kind of high, doesn't it, John, over an hour?
Yeah. I mean, I usually never saw more than 5.
Right. Insulate the top. Put insulation on the top of whatever you're using for your mash. That's where most of your heat is going to get lost. Evaporation of liquid drastically drives down your temperature. So cover it up. Don't keep peeking at it constantly. That lets out a lot of heat. So I don't think you would have that big a drop. If you're measure multiple points around the sides, in the middle. And then, the question of it, messing with body, I don't think it really does.
No. I mean, it depends on what temperatures he's mashing in at, and then what temperature he ends up with at the end. But if, let's say he's hitting 155, to mash in,
right,
and then it cools down to 145, that's kind of fine. I mean, it's perfect. I mean, you've got all your starches soluble at 150, so you've gone past that. Everything's in solution. As it cools, the survivability of your beta amylase improves, so your beta is going to stick around a little longer. You should be nice and fermentable. I don't see you're not going to mess up your body. You're not going to over attenuate. It's going to be a good beer. Now, if on the other hand, if he's only hitting 150 to mash in, and then it cools down to 140, he may be missing out on conversion. Where it's just slightly too cool. Didn't get all the starches into solution and so on.
Well, does he say he's working at like a McMurdo station or something? Or, I mean, Is he in the Arctic of some kind, or
is this actually you, Steve?
Is this you? Failing?
Maybe.
In your first brew? Yeah, I'd be surprised if you lost 10 throughout the entire mash.
Unless you leave the lid off.
Yeah, right. Make sure you put a lid on, and if that's not good, you could wrap it in a blanket or something like that. That'll help too, or just strap on some styrofoam. That'll make a huge difference if you got like a really thin, cheap cooler.
Yeah, and you're comfortable with strap-ons, right, Steve?
Yeah.
Okay, there you go. So strap one on. All right,
strap one on.
Next question.
All right. Hey, guys. When I bottle my beer from the keg, it tastes watery and thin. However, when I pour a glass straight from the tap, it tastes fine with plenty of body and not watery at all. Is this what they refer to as bottle shock? I'm not getting any off flavors from the bottled beer, just thinness. I tried bottling with the Blickman beer gun, but which is just a piece of tubing attached to the tap, and also just directly from the tap into the bottle. All seem to produce the same result. I've never heard of bottle shock.
Yeah, I'm not sure what he means either. So he pours it from the tap and it's fine.
Right.
If he bottles from the tap and then opens the bottle and drinks it, he says it's thin?
I mean, I've done this where you I've poured a pint of beer and then I've run beer into a bottle and then immediately poured it into a pint glass, and the beers are different. That's what they mean by bottle shock.
Loss of carbonation then due to pouring, over-pouring?
I think, it has to be related to that. The question would be, how much later is he checking the beer? Because I've bottled beer and had it turn out, just fine. So it's an initial thing, and I think it has to do with like the bottle being slightly warm, and bottle being room temperature, and adding some warmth to the beer, driving off a little bit of carbonation is lost, and then that combination of things makes the beer seem different.
So if you're bottling from the keg, should you kind of chill it?
I wouldn't worry about it because, you take those bottles and then put them in the fridge, and then at the same temperature as your beer in the fridge, and then you pour one draft and pour one out of the bottle, and they go back to seeming, very close to the same thing. I don't think you would notice the difference. If they're truly coming out thin or something like that, I mean, that's, again, maybe a contamination issue.
Coming from the keg to the bottle?
Yeah, more likely than not, I would say he's losing dirty bottles or dirty lines, or especially if you fill off a faucet. Faucets are filthy. Absolutely filthy. You never want to fill off a faucet. That's a giant mistake. I know Tasty does it, but...
sanitation.
Right. Well, but, I mean, I think that cost him the chance to win medals at times. You don't want to fill off a faucet and then leave it for long. You could fill off a faucet, fill a growler, take it over to your friend's house, or some bottles, take it over to your friend's house and drink it that night. Yeah, it's no big deal.
If you let it hanging out for too long.
Right, but you don't want to leave it for weeks or something like that. The other possibility is driving off CO2. He mentions using a beer gun, things like that. I'm assuming he's not getting horrible foaming. But that's another possibility. You're driving off too much carbonation. Carbonation is a weird thing. Depending on the gravity of the beer, the body of the beer, a lot of the alcohol content, a lot of different things, you can get more body by not putting in as much CO2, like in an English ale. You can get more body by putting in more CO2 in something like a Belgian ale. I mean, it just depends on the individual beer. Sometimes too much CO2 can give a beer a sense of thinness, and sometimes too little CO2 can give you a sense of thinness. So it's kind of an odd thing there. So, perhaps it's the CO2. Perhaps it's contamination. I'm not sure what else.
Those are the only two that occur to me.
Yeah.
Seems more like a sanitation thing. Especially, if he said he's using in my years of experience. Well, I mean, he says he's using tried bottling with the Blickman beer gun.
Mm-hmm.
Like, unless, I don't know, man, like, it just doesn't seem like carbonation is the major factor here. It seems more likely, like, it's a slight low contamination issue.
Could be. All right. Let's squeeze in one more.
Hello, Brown Network.
Hello.
I have some questions concerning carapils. Basically, why and when? Why add it to the mash if you can simply increase the mash temperature to increase dextrins and non-fermentables?
Mm-hmm.
Is there a unique flavor, or am I missing something else? And secondly, when should it be added to the mash if used? Should it be mashed in with all the other grains, or added after the bulk of starch conversion has already taken place?
Well, I would say it does have a flavor, but I mean, it's mainly for the addition of dextrins.
You won't degrade them by mashing in early,
right?
Mashing late.
Yeah, you throw them in early. I've always so there's a lot of people that use them, and I blame Vinny at Russian River. I think it's all his fault. Back in the day. So Vinny has, it was Blind Pig recipe or maybe Pliny recipe or something, had both carapils and simple sugar, like corn sugar, in the recipe. And it's like, aren't those two kind of countering each other? And he explained it, when back in the day when he was trying to brew the beers, his mash tun was too small. And so he wanted to add simple sugar to up the alcohol, but he didn't want to lose body, so he added the carapils. And so that was kind of his thing. I'll tell you also that really there are brew plants out there in the world that work at one temperature. So when you dough in, it's always the same temperature. They cannot raise the mash temperature. Like homebrewers are spoiled in that they could do any mash temperature they want. Some commercial setups, it's 152 all the time. If you want more dextrins, well, you better add carapils, right? If you want, lower overall, you got to add sugar. But you can't change the mash temperature. It's not something the brew plant is capable of. So that's really what it's for. When you can't change your mash temperature, you throw this in.
Okay.
I mean, that said, if you want to use it. I
never brew with it.
Yeah, I never use it. I've used it in the past, and then I'm just like, well, I'll just raise my mash temperature.
Yeah. Yeah. I get great head without using it. I don't think it's needed for extra foam.
Mind yourself there, Steve. Come on. Sorry.
Yeah, I really don't see a need to use it. It makes more sense, Jamil, from what you just said.
Right. There is a reason for it existing.
Yeah.
And perhaps I'm mistaken, and it is like the greatest thing for head retention, and everybody should be using it because it does so much better, than raising the mash temperature. I mean, there is Carafoam.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, don't use either, but...
Right. Right, yeah, I mean, I like to keep things simple a lot of times, just not add too much other stuff and depend on that. Plus having to stock it and all that's like, that would kill me. Seems like too much effort. All right. What isn't a lot of effort is downloading the free AHA Brew Guru app.
Right.
You can get it for free from the Google Play Store. You can get it from the App Store, the iPhone App Store. You can probably get it from the little kid sitting at the end of your couch. I'm just saying. The Brew Guru app is going to guide you to all those great discounts that you have available to you through the AHA. If you're an AHA member, you get discounts at a lot of homebrew shops, bottle shops, restaurants, breweries, brew pubs, enough to more than pay for your membership. Don't forget, for the membership, you get, access to things like the member session at GAPF. You get the Homebrewers Conference. You get the Zymergy magazine. You get the online forums. You get, all that stuff. And you get somebody, looking out for, homebrewers in government. You get all that, and you can actually net yourself more money by using the Brew Guru app than you paid for the membership. Trust me on this. If you like beer, I'm assuming you do. If you like to brew beer, I'm assuming you do. And if you eat, I'm assuming you do. You can end yourself with a net profit. So check out the Brew Guru app. It'll point you to all the great places around you that have discounts for AHA members. It'll point you to places that don't have discounts. But support the ones that do. And there's even some curated content on there. Great articles about brewing. So check it out, Brew Guru from the AHA. All right, let's take a short break. When we come back, we will wrap up your questions about body right after this.
Brewing great beer is a process of continuous learning, and the best books on every aspect of brewing can be found at Brewers Publications, with more than 50 awesome titles like Modern Homebrew Recipes by Gordon Strong, Designing Great Beers, The Ultimate Guide to Brewing Classic Beer Styles by Ray Daniels, American Sour Beers, Innovative Techniques for Mixed Fermentations by Michael Tonsmeyer, For the Love of Hops, The Practical Guide to Aroma, Bitterness, and the Culture of Hops by Stan Hieronymus, and Radical Brewing, Recipes, Tales, and World-Altering Meditations in a Glass by Randy Mosher, plus many, many more. These are the books and the authors with the knowledge to push your brewing farther than you thought possible. And you'll find them all at fine homebrew and book retailers everywhere. And visit the website at brewerspublications.com. Brewers Publications, all the best on beer and brewing. Your support of the Brewing Network means everything to us. We couldn't produce shows without you. And we love giving you something extra for that support, like Brew Your Own magazine. You already know it's a great brewing magazine full of recipes, equipment how-tos, discussions of beer styles, and brewing techniques. Whether you're new to brewing and just starting out or you're an old pro, you'll always learn something from the articles in Brew Your Own. Plus, there are amazing special issues like plans for building a Brutus 10 system, 250 classic clone recipes, and the Homebrewer's Answer Book. Brew Your Own magazine and BYO.com are awesome resources for any brewer, whether for yourself or as a gift. When you subscribe or resubscribe from the Brewing Network homepage, you directly support programs like this. Get a great magazine and support the Brewing Network. Subscribe to Brew Your Own right from thebrewingnetwork.com.
Are you looking for a simple brewing system that's great for all grain brewing, but everything on the market seems to be full of compromises? Blickman Engineering has the answer. The Blickman Brew Easy All Grain Brewing System. The Brew Easy is a complete system with easy upgrades and a beautiful compact design, perfect for any size brewing location. At its core, the Brew Easy is built on two gorgeous Blickman Boilermaker brew kettles, a high-temperature March pump, and either a top-tier gas burner or the new Boil Coil electric heater. The Brew Easy adapter lid allows the pots to stack on top of each other, forming an efficient, strong, and compact brewing setup that comes in 5, 10, and 20-gallon batch sizes. Upgrade your Brew Easy system with full automated control by adding a Blickman Tower of Power temp controller, and make moving around easy with the Blickman Kettle Cart. The Brew Easy is modular. If you already own a Boilermaker kettle, you can build your Brew Easy by purchasing just the modules you need. The new Brew Easy all-grain brewing system. See it today at BlickmanEngineering.com and brew with Blickman quality on your new Brew Easy.
Learning to brew has never been so disgusting. This is Brew Strong.
All right, we're back. We've been answering, Steve. We've been answering your questions about body and all that. When you have questions, you can send them in to brewstrong@thebrewingnetwork.com, and we will eventually get them on the show.
We appreciate your questions. Helps us understand what our audience wants to talk about.
Well, and we also appreciate our fine sponsors. For example, adamandeve.com. Check them out. They are offering, if you use the offer code Jamil, Jamil, at adamandeve.com, you can get 50% off just about any one item. You'll get a free romance kit, a free DVD, and free shipping. The romance kit is going to include...
It's not a coloring book.
Well, it's a special toy for him, a special massager for her, and a little something we know you'll both love. Plus, you're getting the free DVD to kind of get you all in the mood. So check it out. It's all shipped for free if you use the offer code Jamil, Jamil, at adamandeve.com. All right, let's see. What do we got left? We got 2 questions left?
Yep.
All right, let's try and hammer through them.
All right. This one's about head retention in cider. I'm considering making my first... What? What?
You're trying to... Wait.
Just the
so
title alone,
insider is a long-term joke through through the years, and a head retaining the head insider. I don't know. It seems a little odd.
A little suggestive there.
I'm wondering if this question is real.
Is this all a joke? I'm considering making my first hard cider this year, and I had a question about upping head retention.
See, all of a sudden,
it's
taking on a different meaning.
Every sentence is funny now. I know apple cider lacks the protein content that is important for maintaining.
Yeah, deposit the proteins in
head
cider.
For beer. So I was wondering if there was a way to utilize a small percentage of one of the head-encouraging specialty grains. Caro foam, Caro pills, oats, flake barley, wheat, etc., without significantly contributing flavor to the final product. I'm not worried about trying to pull extra sugars from the grain, and I'd really like to preserve the flavor of the cider, but I don't know how far I can go in the cider.
How far you can go in cider?
In cider with the percentage without significantly changing the flavor profile. Would I need to mash them, and if so, would I need to add in some amount of base malt to encourage starch conversion? Can they just be steeped in a solution that encourages protein extraction, or is this all a terrible idea?
Well, Caro pills and Caro foam are already converted into dextrins, so you can steep them. You don't have to mash them.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then other grains such as rolled oats or flaked barley, which would contribute a lot of protein, those would need to be mashed.
Right. Otherwise, it'd be real hazy. But hey, hazy nowadays is fine in anything. What do they use in commercial ciders? They use like kelp, carrageenan, and all that other stuff. The same thing they use in ice cream to give it a thickness and a fullness. You try something like that. I mean...
cider really shouldn't have head. Right.
I don't think of insider as being full of head. And in a lot of these things, you can get these products, and they are just naturally extracted, goo from kelp, and it's not like it's not organic or natural. So you could use some of that, too. I think it's as natural as something extracted from grain.
Yeah.
Well, if you have some of these commercial ciders, they will have quite a bit of head on them.
Oh, really?
If you're talking the big brand commercial ciders, they'll head up. because they add these additives to them.
Yeah.
I think, like you're saying though, John, if you want real cider, you're really not looking for head. I mean, what is the head doing?
Right.
So, maybe just skip that. I mean, that's what I would do, but trying to answer the guy's question here. But like you said, some Carafoam.
Yep.
Yeah, steep it. And I think it would add some flavor.
Yeah, you get a little bit of grainy.
Yeah. Because you'd need quite a bit.
Yeah.
I imagine you'd need probably several pounds per 5 gallons to make a difference in a cider and really give it good head retention.
Yeah, it's likely true,
Yeah. So at that point, you're going to taste it for sure. If you just steep like a quarter pound or half pound, I don't think it's going to make any difference at all.
Right. Yeah, the carrageenan or the kelp and so on, that'd be more likely to...
more flavorless, especially if it's highly processed.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's how the commercial folks do it. So there you go. All right. Last question.
All right. This one's called Mash Play. Just curious, not trying to reinvent the wheel. If I were to mash in my upcoming brew of a Helles Munich, then I'm experimenting with a lower mash temperature to possibly mash in this time at a mid to high protein rest. Then within 10 minutes, fire the burner and the recirculation system to slowly go up to the desired mash of 148 Fahrenheit. Would I, in theory, have a much less muddled beer due to not having as much of my mash denatured due to the higher mash temp of 168 to hit 148-ish if I were to do a single infusion? I'm experimenting due to the ongoing desire to make this beer the same flavor as the first time I brewed it back when I was only using a cooler system in 2013. With the cooler, I denatured grain, but back in the day, I'm sure I lost a lot more heat in the mash. I'm trying to lower the mash temp to see if a drier beer is what I recall original recipe was 152 Fahrenheit mash.
So what this points out to me is don't drink when you're writing these emails, these questions, and reread them and make sure they make sense. That is a whole lot of confusing. All right, so I'm assuming when they said 160-something, 140-something, they're talking about like doughing in hot.
He doesn't want his mash denatured due to the higher mash temperature of 168.
Right.
He wants to start lower, but then fire.
Right, so...
strike water at 160.
Right, a high strike water temperature to get to 148. That's got to mean your grains are cold. And I would say move your grains indoors, a couple days before, so they can get up to like room temperature, and you wouldn't need to go 168. I mean, 20 degrees is quite a drop. So I'm imagining those grains must be really cold. So if you want to avoid that, you could probably go 160, and even if you go 168. You're not denaturing all the enzymes in the malt. I think, unless you're doing a really high water to grist ratio, but then that doesn't make any sense either. You could, again, go at a lower temperature with a higher water to grist ratio, and that could help as well as warming up your grains beforehand. So that would resolve that, if that's your worry. And I wouldn't worry about that. Starting out at a protein rest, like, in the 120s to low 130s, and then raising it up, I don't think that's the solution either. I don't think that's going to do you anything of value. Your ride's there, John?
Yeah. They're cleaning out the spillway. Lots of rocks going by.
Anything else to add to that, John? Or?
No, I think you're right.
Shouldn't drink when they're writing the emails.
Yeah, if he's looking for a drier beer, a crisper Helles, Yeah, try to adjust your water to grist ratio, calculate your strike temperature so that you're coming in at around 148, and mash temp. You should only need to go 8-10 degrees above, depending on that water to grist ratio. And as long as you add it and then start stirring, and so everything's and get everything wet within the first minute or two, you're not going to significantly denature anything, even if you're coming in hot, 160, 165 strike temp. It's going to cool down quickly, and you won't denature anything. It'll be fine.
Yeah, I've forgotten what I was going to say.
Protein rest not needed.
Yeah, protein rest not needed. Yeah. No, I'm fine with that. I can't remember what I was going to say. Too much Evil 3, too many other beers. Yeah. No, I think now I remember. More important than anything else in this discussion is, proper yeast pitching rates and nutrition and temperature control. If you do those things, you can get a dry beer out of just any wort whatsoever. Because as we talked about earlier, the residual dextrins, long-chain dextrins, are not that sweet. And what is adding a lot of sweetness is pour fermentation. That's really how the whole thing about homebrew and higher gravity beers being sweeter and all this stuff, because people weren't pitching the right amount of yeast and knew nothing about proper oxygen and nutrients. If you maintain those and you do those correctly, you can have a thick, viscous beer that's dry.
Yeah. Very good point.
Focus on that. I think that's probably more important. All right, another good show. I think we all enjoyed doing it, and hopefully you enjoyed listening to it. And if you did, I would suggest contacting our sponsors like Blickman Engineering and letting them know that you appreciate that they've been sponsoring the show for like the last 10 years, so you haven't had to pay for it ever. So check them out. Send an email to John Blickman. You can use feedback at blickmanengineering.com and tell him how much you appreciate his efforts on your behalf. And check out things in the store. When you buy things from the Brewing Network store, it all goes to the bottom line of the Brewing Network and helps keep shows like this on the air. They've got things like hoodies and shirts and growlers and water bottles and other random stuff like coffee mugs and first aid kits. I don't know. Yeah. All that stuff. And like I said, when you buy that stuff, it goes to the bottom line of the Brewing Network. So until then, everybody, brew strong.
Brew strong, everyone.